All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee Q&A, your daily dose of coffee Q&A here on the OnoCoffee channel. How's it going? I'm Jay, your host, and we do this live stream most Monday through Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern, talking about coffee. And today we're back talking about coffee some of the week and a new month. It's now June 2nd here on the planet Earth, and can you believe it? We're almost halfway. We're halfway through the year. Halfway through. Oh man! So hope your weekend was a good one. I had a good weekend. But today we're going to be talking a little bit about espresso because I was thinking about some of my friends were like, sending me messages not too long ago, and they were like, "Hey, look at this, man." So all of you guys may be familiar with a director by the name of David Lynch. David Lynch was a very famous director here in the United States who did a lot of very interesting types of movies and television shows. And he recently passed away. And his estate has put together a sale. And they're selling a lot of his stuff. And I thought we'd go through that because he's got a lot of interesting things. Like, he's an artist, an artist and a director and just an interesting kind of character. Now, I don't know too much about David Lynch. I was never really a fan of his work. I mean, not that I didn't like it. I didn't really necessarily have an opinion. Like, I think one of his big shows was Northern Exposure, or not Northern Exposure, but his were more artsy, quirky type of works that I just never watched too much of, right? Kent, good morning to you, or good afternoon. How's it going? And so, but he was an interesting character who did a lot of interesting things. And as I was browsing through the auction the other day, I was like, man, that's kind of interesting. I think there might be kind of some nice topics there because he was a coffee guy as well. And so we're going to have a look at that. But first, before we do that, let's make a little bit of espresso to peruse this. Now, I'm sorry, I don't have the other camera's actually deployed somewhere at the moment, so I don't have the overhead for the espresso machine. So we're just going to have to talk about it. Gosh, that's a little bit disappointing, isn't it? Anyway, we're going to make espresso, and part of it I got to make sure I'm going to do because I think tomorrow we're going to be doing the episode where we're going to be tasting the coffees from Omniel. Omniel sent me a couple of 3 coffees because he had some questions about whether or not if he was clear in his interpretations of the coffees, and he wanted me to try them. I said, "Sure, man, send them up to me. I'll be happy to try them." And he sent them to me, but he was like, I can only be able to join the live stream, I think, on Tuesdays and Fridays. So I think, if I got that correctly, we're going to do that tomorrow. Mom, good morning to you. All right, so we've got our coffee, and I really should grab it. Do I have a connector? There must be a connector that I could use. I'm trying to think of maybe. Ever since this new iPhone came out, I haven't really thought too much about adapters for it. But I'm trying to think of, can I use an adapter to connect the phone to the cable? I'm not sure. We're going to continue on without worrying too much about it. We're going to make it really fast. Actually, what I'm going to do is I will turn the camera so that we can see something instead of just nothing. Let's turn the camera this way. There we go. That'll help. Maybe one day we'll actually have a situation where we'll have like a camera person and we can actually take care of it. So as you can see, here's the setup, right? Everything's a little bit cluttered. But we are set up our E61 based La Valentina espresso machine. Russell, good morning to you. And we've got, of course, my favorite, the Mosler Major Auto, which is just a battle tank and beast of a grinder. But we're going to be using this for the tasting. So at some point, I will have to flush everything out of here. And I was thinking, I don't know why last week I mentioned, or when we talked about this the last time, I mentioned that, I don't know how to, it's more difficult to do single dosing, but it's really not that much more difficult to do single grossing. dosing as I thought more about it. I mean, just got to take the coffee out and just put it in. Now, one of the things about these type of grinders, right? Sorry, it's so far away visually. But because these have a dosing grinder, and how these work is that they spin, right? The burrs are flat and horizontally oriented. And as it spins, the centrifugal force pushes the coffee out through a chute that goes into this dosing chamber. Now, this dosing chamber was designed for high volume Italian espresso places where they would, and it's called the Maser Major Auto because there's an auto grind feature. So once you set your grind, you set it to the auto position, which it's actually a three position slow. Then this wasn't modified. So, well, it is. So there's off, there's on, and then there's grind. So three position switch. So once you hit that, it will grind, and it will not stop grinding until the sensor inside here reaches a certain point. It grinds up to a certain point, and then we'll hold it. And then you set the interior chamber so that ideally you have each click, each full stroke will give you 7 grams of coffee. And that's how a lot of Italian espresso is set up. So when it's completely full, it's fairly consistent. There's 1, 2 clicks, 14 grams, double shot, put that in your machine, and then you work with it. We've never used this in that manner because, that's the older school way of doing it where you're just grinding all the coffee. And so you may have a situation where you could sit the whole day with a lot of coffee in there, and that's staling. And one of the things about the coffee, while we have a relatively low rate of evaporation with whole beans, we're taking these whole beans and then we're grinding it down to like 2,000 to 3,000 particles, something like that. And that gives exponential exposure to the air, which causes rapid deceleration and impact with the ground, but that's not the right. But it causes rapid evaporation of the aromatics and the oils. So you get a lot of staling really fast. But if you're in a fast, high volume shop that's really cranking out shot after shot after shot after shot, this feature is actually very helpful. It's not necessarily a detriment to the quality that you're producing, right? Who's with us? Power Plant's with us. Good. Mako, good morning to you. Power Plant says, those dosers remind me of the good old days. Yeah, I still love these. Power Plant says, Rocky, super jollies, good times. Peter says, it's Tuesday and 30. Oh, yeah, that's right. You're way ahead of the curve within us. And this time next week, overseas, where are you headed to this time? More scientific stuff, I presume? And grind by feet. Good morning to you, Craig. Yeah, the oxidation can be quite rapid when you're using this. But like I said, if you're in a high volume situation, I mean, like these were designed for cafes that are truly cranking out. And these were also designed in an era, like I guess the 80s and 90s, or maybe earlier than that. Actually, earlier than that, because dosing grinders have been around for a long time, where I don't think people were as obsessed with the freshness of coffee as we are today, as we started to be in like the early 2000s and has progressed steadily through now. Now, is this something that's viable today? I think it's something that's still very viable. I don't use it in the way that it was designed. I've actually never used it the way that it was designed. When I started out, and we bought all these. Actually, I think this particular one may be an ex-Starbucks machine. Like in 2004, 2005, Starbucks made the transition away from Lamborghini and moved to, what was the company? Share? I want to say they moved to Share for super automatics. Which, a lot of people are like, the quality. But, if you think about it, Starbucks at the time had like 8 to 10,000 locations. They had 150,000 people working for them. Imagine if there were, let's just presume 15,000 of those were baristas. And you needed to train those 15,000 people to make high quality espresso, or at least espresso to a certain quality level. How much training is that really taking? Like it's mind-boggling. Like for me, as someone that has trained people, it's like, how would you do that? Like it takes a while to get people up to speed. But so I can understand why someone like a company like Starbucks wanted to move away from this kind of thing, where there's so much to really master and have command over a grinder and espresso. You really have to have a lot of nuance. You have to have a lot of finesse. You have to have a lot of knowledge and how to manipulate things in order to get the results that you want. Like you can take a grinder like this and still make beautiful, beautiful, beautiful espresso. I don't think you necessarily need to buy the newer, fancier grinders. Certainly can, and it certainly does have different advantages and disadvantages, right? Like this, like especially if you like this, if you want to make espresso for friends multiple times, like you have a party, this is awesome. You know, that bestiality of a grinder. If you're just making 1 or 2 a day or 5 a day for yourself, you know, intermittent throughout the day, the bestiality of this type of grinder doesn't really serve you much purpose, right? Other than just like this sheer power that it's giving you. But when you have a party, that's when, you know, instead of sitting there trying to tinker with it all the time, it works a lot better in that respect. Proud Plan says, I remember when tiger striping was what you wanted in the shot. I mean, I think tiger striping is still a very pleasant thing. I think, though, that nowadays, in modern times, where I think tiger striping was a bigger thing when we had a lot more Robusta mixed in with it. So you got a little bit more of that darker or that quality that Robusta comes out with. You don't see so much of that in espresso today. And I think that's also partially because modern day espresso really has been trending towards lighter roasts. People like that light. They want more of that brighter, acidic tonalities to the espresso. Whereas in the older days, the older styles of making espresso, that was really not the focus. I think that a lot of this comes together when we talk about when we correlate that to the also more recent trend of craft beers, right? A lot of people that I know that are into craft beers, they love hops and IPAs. They want IPAs that have heavy, heavy hops. Like to me, it's just too much. And I'm not a big hops guy, right? I'm not a bitter flavor. I want a little bit of bitter, but not an overwhelming amount of bitter. And I think that a lot of people really in the craft world really enjoy a preponderance of bitterness in their beers. And I think that correlates to coffee, where the same types of people want to have a preponderance of brightness and acidity. Now, it's not necessarily right or wrong. I mean, it's right because that's your personal preference. So you want to enjoy what you're drinking. For me personally, I'm not a big fan of it because I prefer balance. I want balance in my experiences rather than extremes, right? But that's just a thought. All right, so we're going to make the espresso here. Let me get our... As always, you want to make sure that your basket is nice and clean. Right? That's always important. Make sure it's clean and dry. The reason we want it to be dry is because if we put coffee inside here and the basket is wet, you know, and the theory is that it'll swell the coffee, right? Coffee will absorb water and swell, and you won't get as even a compaction of your coffee in the bed. So you want to have that to be a little bit better. Now, I like to just grind it straight up and let it run. Right? Some of you in the past episodes have noted that a lot of the clacking that we used to do, like the clacking was a big part of it. But, you know, again, that's when you're younger and you're newer to the business, and there's some kind of sexiness. You're making it look like you're doing something, right? You're making something. Now, when you're older and you're more experienced, hopefully you have a little more finesse and you don't necessarily need to do those things. All right, so we're just going to distribute it around. And I'll show you the mounding here. I like to leave a good amount of mound. I enjoy mounds. And we'll temp it here. We'll temp it there. We'll temp it there. And one thing to keep in mind when you're using a tamper that has the spouts, you want to make sure that you're putting it on the belly of your tamper and not here, right? Because if you put it here, it could easily roll side to side. It can slide off. Whereas if you put it here, it's a little bit more stable. Now, most of them, like this is a newer La Marzocco stainless steel milled, well, I don't know if it's, maybe it's casted, but it's casted to have this edge here, this flat edge. So that prevents it from rotating. Like the old ones would rotate. So you just got to make sure that, and that's where a little more of the skill would come in the old days. So you have to like make sure that you held it securely, pressed it up against the edge of your counter here so you get a little bit of good wedge. And then we're going to drop this down. Oh, that's pretty full. Oops, darn it. Let's try that again. Okay, now we got a little bit of mount here, right? So let's look over here. Can you see that? It's got a little bit of a divot here. Boulder, divot, high pile. Every time you dose, it's going to be a little bit different. So you want to adjust the way that you distribute based on the situation. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to sweep around this way to fill that in, come back there. And really what I'm trying to do is fill it in, just fill it in nicely until it's relatively even. Have a little bit of a mount here. And we're just going to take that, just knock off a little bit on there so that we can now. And the last time I did that, I put this down and I can feel when there may be too much coffee, right? Why? Because I've done it so many times that I have a feel for it. And I could have put it on a scale, and I'm really bad at that sometimes. And then now we've got it here, so I'm just going to feel down on the opposing sides with both fingers, touching both the top of the piston and the top of the basket as reference points to see where are there unevennesses that I can just use my fingers to adjust, right? And bring that in. So I'm just going to go around just like that, make sure it's nice and even. Then we're going to come back and tamp. Now here's something that I want you to consider, right? When you're tamping, this is really something that I think is super important for baristas, is that ergonomics is terribly important. Now, one of the things about this, I'm 5'8", and my legs compared to other people are shorter than other people. So my torso, I think, is longer than others. How I get the 5'8", right? Anyway, my point is that this countertop, this bar top, is 42 inches high, which is too high, really, for coffee work. I think it's way too high. The most you should do is 36 inches, right? So the counter that's sitting on is more of a counter height, more of a working height, where this is bar height. So this is like 36, 42. A little bit more comfortable. I prefer a little bit lower. Like I would drop it down to maybe down to 30 inches, right? And a lot of it has to do with your own personal physique. If you can design your own space, it's much better. Like I like to have it as low as possible. That way you get better leverage. And especially in a commercial environment that we're like at Spro, we're trying to design a place where we can have a range of baristas being able to work from short people to taller people. But once you get that down, and so the ergonomics part, you want to make sure that your hand, you see, even though that I'm like really contorted over, my bones are kind of like this bone here is in line with the shaft of the piston of the tamper, which is what you want. You want it to just a little gentle press will really give you that 20 pounds that you want. And then I usually finish off with a slight twist just for a polishing. One of the things that's also problematic when you're working with a high counter like this is that, man, it's like I can feel that the body mechanics are harder. Like I'm trying to keep everything just right, but because you have to contort so far over in order to get that, it's very uncomfortable, and it's not something that I would ever encourage anyone to have to work with on a daily basis. But for the occasional live streams, sure. So once we twist, Coffee Cove, good morning to you. Anton says he's chosen. He's the chosen. He will. Russell says that's a deep basket, 54 millimeters. This is a VST basket. I'm not sure exactly how deep it is. It's 58 wide. I'm just not sure how deep. Anton says, pretty sure that's 58. Otherwise, the 21. Yeah, that's for sure. Well, I mean, it's more about, I don't know. Would it be? It's not going to be 58 deep, right? I don't think that's 58. Anyway, so there it is. So just a little bit of a polish, right? So you have a little bit of polish, nice and clean. I like it to be clean. And then now it's just time to pull the shot. 20 plus years of owning this machine, the vibratory pump still makes me a little bit wiggy. All right, push that in, and then brew right away. One thing I like to do is I like to brew right away. I don't want it to sit there and wait. Oh, this is not a nice chocolate espresso. This is too runny, too runny. Look at that, too runny. Oh, so sometimes you have to go with the bad in order to get with the good. So as you can see, very thin, very thin. That's probably because the coffee that's been sitting there is kind of pre-ground and a little bit older. Anton says, brewing right away is underrated. I don't think so. I like it. So let's have a taste of it. Now the cameras are offset, so I have to move over. Oh God, that's terrible. That's terrible. Let's see what's wrong with it. Does it look bad? It looks fairly good. Yeah, good compaction, good. Everything looks nice. Maybe that coffee's just old. It could just be old. Right? Look at that. Not bad. The way that sticks together is pretty good. Doing that always makes a mess. All right, we're going to do one more and see if we can do better. Maybe not so much talking. Okay, there we go. Oh, that's a lot. That was way too much. Knock that down. We may be in a situation where we need to have definitely. We're in a situation now where we haven't been in a while, and I guess that's because now we've moved away from winter time and now to summertime. So the environment has changed. Now I think it's running fast. Look at this. Okay, so this crema looks a little bit better, slightly, but not so nice. Look at that holes there. It's sort of thick. No, it's not really thick. Oh God, that's not very good. Better, but not. That's not what we're looking for. Not quite the rubbish level of espresso, but not. Even if I was drinking by myself, alone, without all of you, I would still be very disappointed. Oh, that's terrible. So what does that mean? It means that, we're at a situation where I think we need to adjust the grind. And it's pretty runny. It's not getting enough development. I think we need to go finer, right? So on this particular grinder, you want finer is to the right, looser, coarser is to the left. And so you don't really want to go too far, but here. How much should you go is always a question that people might want to ask. How much should I adjust? And the real answer is as much as you think, right? And that's the only way to get to this point, is that there were many times in my earlier days where I would sit there and struggle with the grind setting. And I mean struggle like an hour trying to find it. Adjusting, pulling shots. Terrible. And just burning through pounds of coffee. And I mean, really, it's bad. It's bad. When you have a commercial setting, you've got 15 pounds or 25 pounds in inventory of espresso that you can burn through. You may end up going through a lot of them trying to figure this out. And a lot of that will have to do because maybe you're adjusting too much or not enough, right? I don't really necessarily have a way to convey that the how much portion of it to you without having to go through some level of experience or, testing it. And the important thing is to always taste, right? Like, we pull the shot, we taste the espresso. Now, these two shots, I could look at them and I could already know that they're not going to be great. They're not going to be something that I would like to try. But I taste them anyway. And I'm not just necessarily doing that for the camera purposes. I actually will do that in real life, unless it's really, really egregious and like just flying out of it. Then there's no real need to even bother with it. But you want to taste it, right? Because you really, and I always encourage like baristas when we're training them, and in some ways I'll even force them to taste their espresso, because the only way that you really ever get to know the product, the espresso, is by tasting it, right? Like, you can look at it and like, oh, it doesn't look so nice. Well, it doesn't look so nice. Perhaps it may taste nice. Unlikely, but perhaps it might. There's always something that will break the rules. So you just never know. So I always am willing to taste it just to see and confirm. And you want to do that so you can confirm what you think is correct. And you want to confirm that it is correct, right? Your interpretation. All right, so we're going to try this out one more time. Oh, we're going to adjust. We're adjusting. That's right, we're adjusting. So when you're adjusting your grinder and you want to go coarse, you're separating the burrs apart. In that case, you could just adjust it with don't even turn the grinder on. Now, when you're adjusting like on these flat, horizontally based burrs, there's an amount of coffee that's still inside between the burr sets, right? So you could compact it down by rotating it, and it will, you can get it to move, but it's more difficult because there's actually something obstructing its path. By turning on the grinder, you can adjust it a lot smoother, a lot easier than you would otherwise. Now, this particular grinder has very, very fine threading, so just you just need a little bit of motion in order to get some results. So we're just going to adjust it just a little bit, because I think we're just off a little bit. We're not off a dramatic amount. George is with us. Good morning, all, and to you as well, as Professor. I've been listening from afar. Now I'm free to watch. This class will end up on. Oh, excellent. So, so we're just going to adjust slightly. Okay, now I let that a little bit grind through in order to try to push through any kind of coffee that may be of the older setting. Now, it will typically take maybe 2 or sometimes 3 additional shots for truly to settle in and seat with the setting, but we're going to see what happens with the first one. All right. Now, as you can see, there's a spring lever here, right? That caused this to go back. In the olden days, some of the baristas would take the spring out. You can take the bottom plate off and remove the spring to this. That way they get faster clacking. And you hear the clack, 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 right? Okay, so we've got our mound. Again, it's a little bit lower here. Every time you do it, and if you notice from the last time, it looks different than the last time, right? It's somewhat in the same area, because probably the way that I'm holding it, the way that it drops it into the basket is somewhat similar, but it's always going to be different. So the way you're going to approach it may be different. So I'm going to come around here. I feel like that's a lot of coffee. Okay, that's good. Now we're going to sweep that back in and just create a little bit of mound. I like to create a little bit of a mound. Right, there's a slight mounding here because I like to have a little bit of coffee. And I like to have it more in the center because I feel like it'll compact out this way. Right? So you're going to need just a little bit over. Again, we're just going to push this on top to make sure that it's all even. All right, now we've got our puck is ready. Can I get some color on you? There we go. Our puck is ready. All right, now let's try it. Oh. All right, I'm thinking that terrible. We're going to have to relabel this show the Terrible Espresso Show because this is just rubbish. Look at that. That's not very nice. I think that what we need to do is maybe go. So there's at this point, because I know this coffee, we're going to say there's two possibilities here. One, we didn't grind far down enough. We could chase it more, or the coffee is just a little bit on the older side, so we're not getting truly great results. Yeah, thin and it's one of those times just kind of like, disappointed. How about if we do one more? Let's do one more. Now I went really, really far with it. And I'm also in a little bit of a trouble spot because now I have very little coffee left. Maybe enough for 2 more shots total. So we're going to have to see if we can Godspeed it and make something nice with this. Hopefully that greater, I went through a little bit greater adjustment than I might have otherwise without having this stress of By the way, if you ever want to get that clacking action, right, you see that I'm holding the paddle like this. This is actually poor form. What you really want, and this is why you want it a little bit lower. You want to be over it like this, right? So you can. I'm out of practice. Okay, so that's too much. I'm gonna knock off a little bit of that. Got that there. I didn't really distribute it around, did I? All right, that's all right. That's all right. That's a little bit less than I would like, but let's see what happens. Oh, that sounds better. It looks a little. No, that looks not really better. It's not very good at all. It's quite ugly. It's quite dismal failure. Okay, so crema is a little bit better, right? The crema is a little bit darker. I think if we crunch down on it more, I think, wow, really, this is. I think we need to. So that's holding together a lot better. So I think that if we were to continue on, we would need to. If I had more coffee to use, we would need to tighten up a little bit. Maybe I think that this setting might be all right. We probably have a lot of the older coffee that's at the older setting. Let's have taste. That's better. That's getting closer to what we want. And this is part of the process of. Oh, there you go. More cocoa notes are coming out. Oh, this is the washupe. Yeah, okay. Better. Do we have enough to do more? Anyway, like I said, like I haven't been saying, but we were supposed to be talking about today's auction, or not today's auction, but it's going to be an auction. So there's some basic thoughts on espresso making. Let's go to what our topic of the day is supposed to be, which is David Lynch. David Lynch is the filmmaker that I mentioned before that passed away recently, and now he's got an auction. Powerplant says, I totally get the romanticism of the old ways, but they are in fact old. There is a happy medium. Oh, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. What do you think that happy medium is? Like, where do you find yourself wanting to be in that middle ground? All right, so let's look here. So this is the David Lynch auction. And can I put myself in the picture here too? Oh, there we go. Okay, there I am. Hello. Now, like I said earlier, I don't really know that much about David Lynch. I know that he was, well respected and he was a great director that people loved. And I just thought we would go through this because there's some coffee items in here. There's also some woodworking items, which is, kind of my own personal, interest. But I thought that I would share this because let's go through the auction and see what they got. In case you're interested, look at that. We're starting off right away with a mug here, a Twin Peaks. What's it say? Twin Peaks themed log lady mug. Now, here's one thing that we're going to see that's very much a theme throughout the auction. Here we have next to it is the Mazzer Mazzer Mini Electric A commercial espresso grinder for $3,000. Look at the estimate. The estimated price was $500 to $700, which, that would be all right. $500 to $700. Okay, not bad, not bad. I mean, that would be kind of expensive for that, I think, for me to pay. Like, I would not pay that much on that, especially on the 700 side of things. But $3,000? Crazy. Then we've got the GS3 home espresso machine, $7,000. Now, here's the thing. When I'm thinking about auctions, and I buy quite a bit at auctions, I'm really looking for a deal, right? Like, to be honest with you, David Lynch, cool. Like, he owned a GS3. Okay, awesome. But that doesn't change the value for me, at least for me, right? And I know there's a lot of people that are big David Lynch fans, and obviously there are, because look at the prices, $7,000 right now, and we still have until the 18th of June. Like, it's still 17 days away, and it's already at that point. So Twin Peaks roasted coffee mugs, $700 for mugs. Like, I'm just like, ooh, that's crazy. 441 lots. We won't go through all the lots. We'll go through some of them. Oh, there's a Mr. Coffee in here. Oh, I can only imagine. No. So I think a lot of these were from his house. Like, this is probably what he had in his home. Like, I've got a Mr. Coffee here. Whoa, $12.50. Holy smokes. Now, if you're interested in looking at this auction, I do have the link in the description down below. You can just roll down and click on it. Taxidermy deer heads. I mean, like, it's a shame David Lynch is dead. Like, if he had sold this when he was alive, like, he could have made a good bank. Like, this is some, there's some good profit to be had here. Here we have some David Lynch limited edition, club chairs. Alison Reinhold sign. Okay, that's kind of. I think this. I would consider buying that. Not for $12,500. No, for $300 maybe. I think that's kind of interesting for, like, the house. Mulholland Drive scripts, 3 of them for $15,000. Well, I just don't know who. Like, you're going to buy this script for these 3 for $15,000. How will you ever recoup your money on that? Like, is it even worth that much? Like, I honestly have stacks of scripts in a box from my movie days, and one of them is actually the original script to Dumb and Dumber. That Jim Carrey movie. It was back then. It was called A Chainsaw Will Kill You or something like that. It was one of the original versions of it, because I read it when I was in the business, and I was like, oh, interesting. Like here, poster in Inland Empire, 3,500. Good Lord, man, that's crazy. Like none of these are signed, right? Like, I don't know if you can, if the provenance would even be a part of the factor for later sale of these things. Here, the leather. So this is a director's chair, low height director's chair. Nobody really uses these chairs anymore. Like this is very old. Like even in the 90s, we weren't using chairs like this. We were using the taller ones, and these lower ones haven't been used for quite a while. Nice with the leather. Like I think it's. I mean, this is more like a nice one than one that we probably use on set. Here we've got a Canon scopic 16 millimeter film camera with $16,000. Good Lord, that's crazy. A7R, like $7,000. Why would you? That's crazy. Now, if we look here, it does have him, an image of him. So does that mean that on the card, like was he vlogging with this and then like he's talking to the camera and the SD card with that file is still in the camera? Okay, that could be something. That could be a good, it could be a reason to justify $7,000 for an A7R. Canon 5D for 2,500. Okay, that's still pricey. So these cameras here is $8,000 for 4 video cameras. We've got mini DV cameras from like the early 2000s, late 1990s, which would be antiquated by today's standards for $8,000. Okay, that's crazy. This one here for $250. These are old VHS and VHS-C cameras. Okay, totally useless today. Totally useless. Oh, that's what the same. This is kind of sad. I mean, people enjoy it. I get it. I'm just like, wow, crazy. Marcus says, funny today, I happen to be dialing in my own coffee along with you. Oh, nice. The beans I'm using are called Side Hustle by Gift Coffee based in Virginia. Oh, nice. And you're enjoying it. Excellent. George says, I think what adds poignant quality to these items is that the proceeds from the auction will benefit Turner Classic. Does Turner Classic Movies really need a benefit? Booster says that David Lynch directed one of the most underrated sci-fi films of all time, Dune, which aired in 1984. My cousins were big fans of that movie, that version of Dune. Like they were always about it. But they were also much more classically educated. They went to like a very good prep school. I only went to an okay prep school, right? Power Plant says they are rich people who will pay a lot for. They just want it, and no doubt. I mean, you've got to have some money to burn to burn this kind of cash for these items. George says the only visionary director would have taken on Dune back in those days because nobody else could imagine how to bring them to screen. The man had balls, if not absolutely. Jabrowski's Dune, R.I.P. Nice. Russell asked Punahou. No. I grew up here, Russell, in Baltimore, so I did not go to Punahou. I went to the equivalent of not Damien. I went to something place better than what would be Damien today. Gosh, what was it? There was a school that I could think of before that would be the better corollary to. My cousins went to the equivalent of Punahou here in a place called Gilman. I went to a place called Loyola, and Loyola in the 80s was good. But like when I would talk to my cousins and they would talk about what they were like intellectualizing about, I remember I was very uncomfortable with it when I was younger. Like only when we got older and I was like much more comfortable with who I am as a person, that I would tell them, like, dude, I remember we'd be hanging out and we're like, I am definitely not getting the same education as you guys. They would talk about Dostoevsky, and I'd be like, well, I have no idea who that Russian dude is. Is he the guy that had the revolution? I don't know. But I went to a place that would be similar to St. Francis. No. What's the school? What's the Catholic prep school in Kalihi for boys? That's probably the closest equivalent to where I went. Booster says Jabrowski's Dune would have been wild. Oh, that would have been interesting. All right, so let's look here. Continuing on, David Lynch's production slate, $2,750. Wow, that's insane. Now, here's something that's interesting. Something that could be worth good money, right? Like these two here. These are great examples. In this particular 6 tripods, I was looking at this the other day. There's just a bunch of tripods in here that are just okay. Just okay. Now, if you wanted to like buy something, this could be something. So I've got a Manfrotto Gitzo, Manfrotto Good, Manfrotto Silk. Silk's okay. But what you have here is the Sackler, the DSV, the DV6SB. This Sackler, which is this one here, are always expensive. Like this is cheaper than a Sackler today. So if you bought it for $1,500, you'd probably be doing pretty darn well if you could sell it. And also this, at $1,250, I think Cartonis are more expensive than that to begin with. So, and it comes in 2 monopods. So there it is. This could be, you have to look at the listings of like B&H Photo or whatever today, but I'm pretty sure that these would be very nice. Or I think these are undervalued. I think, if I'm thinking correctly. George says that Jabrowski lacked the weight to get the Hollywood type fight on that. I think that's true. Booster says, but Villeneuve's version, I gotta say, the Villeneuve version is awesome. Like I haven't seen part 2. I saw part 1, and I remember watching it, and I was like, it's one of those movies that were like 3 hours long, major epic. And I remember sitting there thinking, man, it was like when I watched the very first of the 3 Lord of the Rings. Like they got to that point, they're on the mountain, they're like, yeah, we're gonna go. And I'm thinking, we're 3 hours into it. I didn't even know how far into it, but I remember sitting there in the theater, I'm thinking, I gotta pee like a raging bull. Like it's just like, it's almost like I can't like hold back, right? But I'm like, I'm so into this movie that I will not leave. I'm ready to go another 3 hours, right? And then the movie ended, so I could go to the bathroom. But I felt like that with the first dude. I was like, man, I'm just so. But I never got around to seeing the second part 2 yet. I need to watch it. I know, you're right, Pusa. You're right. I need to go. I need to see it. All right, let's look here. So we got 5 vintage stage lights, like $2,000. I mean, what are these? These are matching Fresnels. Do they look red? They look kind of like Mo Richardson's. Oh, no, they're not red. I have no idea who those are. I'm surprised they didn't put the ULE315. Those are pretty awesome. So other lighthouses, so they have 1,000-watt bulbs, 750-watt bulbs. So not quite ideal for use today. Like the problem with these old incandescent or these old halogen style or other types of bulbs is that they're super bright, which is great. And they can give really beautiful quality light. The problem is that it's sucking down 750 to 1,000 watts at a moment, and it gets very hot. So like in the old days, movie sets would be very hot. Like now in modern times, you've got these LED lights that I'm using here, very cool. Like they make very little not to say those older lights made much noise. They were pretty well ventilated, but they would produce a lot of heat, so sets would get super, super hot. Let's see what else we have here. More C-stands. $500, that's a bit. You could buy 2 for like maybe $300. Lowell Pro lighting kit. This is totally impractical. From like all of these lightings, you would never really use today. Like if you're shooting on like old school film stock, you probably would maybe want to use those. But modern times, yeah, there's no real need. Like I have some of these lights, and what am I doing? I really need to sell them. What else we have here? Crates of lighting equipment, fog machine. I would like to have one of those in my house, just for those mood setting times. What else we have here? Canon image annual volumes. Okay, some old stuff that he probably Moviola solid tape reader. Oh, nice. So some of these things, like this Moviola reader, are just kind of stuff I think he had around his office. And some nice books, some nice art books. like a $7,000. You can probably get that cheaper. Bought, the used market. 4,500 for a Hossie. Very expensive. They list a Hossie here, a Hasselblad for this one, but there's no Hossie here. It's all like Sony and Pentax. These older cameras are kind of cool. It's $1,500 for these old, like this old Polaroids. God, that's crazy. Crazy. I mean, God love them. They get, they make money, on it. So some Bang& Olufsen. Oh, nice, nice. Electro Voice. Studio Play DW 10-piece drum kit. Oh, Drum Workshop, good. I didn't know that David Lynch was a musician. Like, I didn't know he played guitar until I looked at these listings. This is cool, the old EMU. That was kind of awesome when I was young. More Bang & Olufsen stuff, some more. This is a steel guitar. Some microphones. Still, I mean, everything is pretty expensive. This is maybe, if you're a collector of like ribbon microphones, this one might be pretty decent. That's actually a decent price for that. The rest, like these Audio Technicas, I don't know, like if you want to spend that kind of money on those stuff here. This could be cool, but not really working. What this is an old Moviola. Moviola is a company that used to make editing machines for film editing. And when I started in the movie business in 1992, the first movie that I worked on was a movie called Major League 2. And the editor for that movie was actually a Moviola guy. And Moviolas were in 1992, Moviolas were pretty old. Like most people would edit on what's called Steenbecks, which are these multi-platter flatbed editors, where this guy had the Moviola and he's sitting there, he's like running the film through the Moviola, and I'm hanging out with him, and he's like, oh. I'm just like, what is this guy doing? This guy's like super old school, like. And this piece of gear, I think it's basically like allows you to like look, feed the film, the 35 millimeter film into it, and just look at it frame by frame. I think that's what that's for. Like this is very old, like compared to like me even. All right, Clockwork Orange, that's kind of cool. Like these posters, like cool posters. And I'm sure they're probably like really nice quality posters. And here's something, if you want to, in more modern times, starting like maybe the 80s, I think it was. If you're looking for movie posters and you want to buy a real movie poster, like one that's designed or maybe even had been used in a theater setting, they're supposed to be double printed, meaning that the side that you see is printed full color. When you turn it over, it's reverse printed in full color as well to match. And that's because when you only had one layer of printing on paper and you back illuminate it, it would wash out the color, right? Because it's passing through the white paper first, it would be washed out. So by printing on both sides, full color, it actually illuminated evenly. So if you're looking for truly exhibition quality movie posters, that's part of the key there, is to look for those. And they only come in, well, did they come in smaller sizes? I think they only came one size. And there was a time when I worked in the business where, we could just call this company and they would send us movie posters. And that's what we did one year. It was like, call up the company and be like, hey, can you send us a poster for this? I'm like, sure. It's like, oh, that's awesome. I got a couple of posters from the movies that I worked on around here somewhere, hanging on the wall. But can you do Northwest Pirate? Okay, Twin Peaks. I was thinking north. What was I saying? North. I said something north. Northern Exposure. Really, I was thinking Twin Peaks. So in this I get why people maybe spend $10,000 because this is his handwriting. It's his personal script. Maybe that's worth something. Oh, here's something that the Twin Peaks crew gift. So a lot of times on a feature production or on a television show, for each season or during the production of the movie, the production company will get gifts for the crew, usually at wrap. They're usually at the wrap at the end of the show. And actually, I've got, I think I'm going to have one. nearby. Let me see it. Usually just sitting around me, not doing anything. So I had a crew hat somewhere, but other things that you may have. Like I got this. This is not a crew gift. This is actually a prop from the movie The Replacements with Keanu Reeves. This is the Washington Sentinels football cap. So the prop masters gave it to me, so I was like, oh, right on. So sometimes you get these kind of cool things, but the prop gifts are, well, the crew gifts are oh, there we go. They're kind of, so this is kind of nice. It's cool. Like only, Twin Peaks 1991 season, only crew gets this kind of thing. So it's actually quite difficult to get. And, kind of like a true, in some ways, a very much a collectible. Powerplant says Villeneuve is one of the directors who get great performances out of mediocre. Are you talking about Timothy Chalamet? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying? Don't be nice to Timothy. He's a young guy. George says he agreed. Dune Part 2 redeems a few of the less than perfect moments in Part 1. I don't know enough about the Dune property to know but I thought Dune Part 1 was really great overall. I just wish it would it kind of didn't go anywhere. I was like, where are we going with this? If this suddenly we're done. Nothing's happened yet. That's what that was only my only critique. Maybe that's why I've been subconsciously reticent to see this Part 2. Malcolm says, to this day, I haven't been able to finish a whole Lord of the Rings movie without falling asleep. Not to say they're boring, they're just too long for my attention. I hear you. I watched Mean Girls last week or the week before. Yeah, I know. 2004 Mean Girls, not the new musical. I haven't seen it before. And I ended up watching that in 2 sessions just because I was like, okay, I'm a little bit losing my attention. Let me stop and then come back to it. So I went back to it. I really enjoyed it, by the way. I did enjoy it. And the reason I saw it because my niece was a chorus member. She's a freshman in high school, and she was a chorus member in the musical version that they did at their high school. And I really enjoyed it. I was like, oh, this is really fun. And so I was like, and my other nieces who were watching with me, they were like, you've never seen the original movie? And I was like, no. George says, good on you to admit that. Some places are admitting that you would arouse the villagers. No doubt. Yes, Malcolm. This is a safe space for you to admit your failings in life. It's all right. Because like I told you, I just admitted to failing at the Mean Girls thing, right? Trying to be very fetch. Powerplant says, John Carpenter is one of my favorite directors. He wrote, produced, and directed, scored. Oh, I didn't know that he scored his stuff too. That's amazing. George says that Carpenter's music is vital to the experience of most of his best work. Because he did a lot of the horror stuff, right? Horror is a really big thing for I guess all of it's really big for music. But Powerplant says he got Ennio Morricone to work on the synth for The Thing is crazy. Oh, that he got him. Okay, yeah. Morricone is one of the famous for doing spaghetti westerns. I remember that. That's pretty amazing. George says we could start our own auction using your wrap party gifts. I don't have that many wrap party gifts. Production posters to benefit the. Oh, that's true. Local pop movies. I like that. Actually, yeah, I don't have that many. How much crew gifts do I have? Like, the replacements also gave us a pullover, a fleece pullover. That was cool with the logo of the company of the production on it. Enemy of the State. I was looking for the Enemy of the State hat, but they gave us ball caps with Enemy of the State on it. I also got my chair from them. They gave me the guys on the prop guys gave me one of the chairs, but it didn't have the logo of the production on it. So it's just a high backed or a high director's chair with no. I always thought about like having something embroidered, but never got around to that. Well, there I am. All right, so let's continue on here because I think there might be some more coffee stuff. Let's just cruise through it. Ooh, Twin Peaks style bowls. Oh, that's kind of cool. $12.50. That's not too bad at the moment. $2,750 for the walkie-talkies. Okay, that's way too much. Like $15,000 for the personal 35 millimeter print of a racer head. Okay, that's a cool piece. Not that you'd ever get to project it, but it would be cool to have. But for $15,000, wow. Racer. Now we're moving to the furniture. So evidently David Lynch was, the reason I found out about the auction is because some of the guys on one of the woodworking forums that I participate in, mentioned it. They're like, oh, he's got a whole bunch of Festool stuff. So like here, this is, actually that's, what? Festool chop saw and 4-unit shop vac setup. A Festool brand KS120EB chop saw. Okay, so the KS120EB is the older generation of the chop saw. The newest generation called the KS120REB sells for $1,700, brand new. Together with a 4-unit Festool brand HEPA dust extractor set from David Lynch's art studio. What? There are 4. Okay, so we've got an older, these are older, of course. Well, there's more pictures. There are a lot of pictures. I like that. So as you can see, he had a pretty serious workshop. Oh, and a big table saw. I don't think I saw the table saw for sale. Bags. Okay, so let's look here. We've got, this is the Capex 120. This is an older CT33. This is a relatively newer, man. Okay, so this may be the best deal right now going on the website at the moment. So they said they expected $400 to $600. $1,750. Like if you were to consider the cheapest vac that you can buy today from Festool is $415. I think it's or let's say $450. And these are much bigger than the ones that are, except for this. Actually, this is the one. No, that's the older version. Oh, no, that is my version. This is what I have right here. This little vac. This vac here costs like $675. These are more. These is like almost $1,000. This is like $900. And this is, this is older. This is like 20 years old. They no longer make this, but it has this attachment, which is this attachment alone will probably cost you like $500 if you bought it new. So at $1,750, this is actually the best deal so far we've seen. Like there's a lot of, if you could get it for $1,750, there's a lot of value to be had here. The only thing is you'd have to fly to California and ship everything back. But maybe it's worth a trip, to get there, rent a van and drive back to Okay, here, another. So when it comes to the Festool stuff, there's some pretty good deals. So here we go. We got these tables here, these 3 tables, $900 currently. So that's $300 a piece. It's very difficult to find these in the used market for $300. So and these are like $600 or $500 new. So that's actually a very good price. This table router is no longer being produced in the no longer being produced. And what I've seen them for sale is just about $1,700 used. So if you get it for $900, $1,000, score. That's a score right there. Let's see, these Festool. These tools are all a range of pretty old and fairly new. Like this stack here is within the last 5 years. This stack is about 20 years old, and this is somewhere in between. So you've got an LS, looks like an LS 130 sander, no longer produced or no longer available. You've got Sanders. So, okay, that domino joiner. So the domino joiner, this thing here on its own, brand new, is like $1,200, $1,300. This brand new OF22 router would be $1,100. So there's some pretty decent. That's a pretty decent package there. But $3,500, like that's actually pretty good. That's actually pretty good. Let's look here. What else we have? We've got this big Agazzini bandsaw, which looks to be like a 24-inch, like massive. This is a massive bandsaw. Like this is like for $1,250. That's a heck of a good deal. That's actually a solid deal for that. The old stuff Incra bandsaw 1,000. That's a little bit pricey, I think, for that. For the $600, this is probably more closer to where it might be valued correctly. Less would be better. Excalibur scroll saw, $900. You can buy a brand new Excalibur 22-inch scroll saw for almost the same, just under that price, maybe $750. So this is not worth it. That's too much already. I like this come with a stand, so maybe that could factor into it. Then you got table saws, Incra. They don't have the big table saw that he had. $700 for this though. This is right now. This is a very good buy. $700 for that Powermatic. Powermatics are pretty expensive. This drum sander for $300 is, if you were to get it for $300, insane deal right here. These are in the thousands, brand new. So especially the ones that are, this is about a 15. What does it say here? 30-inch. How big is this thing? 37-inch. Like this is crazy big. Like this would probably be like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 new or something like that. Like drum sanders are wildly expensive. Gosh, maybe I should bid on that $300. That might be worth a flight and drive back from LA. What else do we have here? Anything interesting? Some hats from David Lynch. Baldhead says the issue with the large stuff is, I agreed. But that's what I'm saying. Like, it might be cheaper to fly there. Like I could cash in some miles, fly to LA, rent a van, load it up, and drive back. With some of that equipment, that's kind of a tempting thought. Like $300. Like if you were to get that, let's say you get that drum sander for $500. Now, and whoever's if the person that's bidding on it is someone that knows the value of these equipment, then almost guaranteed you'll get into a bidding war straight up to $1,000 because he already knows. That person already knows that even at $1,000, maybe even $2,000, a 37-inch drum sander is a hell of a deal. This is cool right here. This Fender Rhodes Mark II 88 suitcase piano. I think they're just awesome. $7,000 awesome? Not really. Here it is, a screen-matched Twin Peaks, The Return, Just You and I, 1980s Epiphone Emperor hollow body electric guitar. I don't know what that means, screen-matched. Like you'd say like it's a hero if it was the actual use on the show. Little blue ukulele here. Motor set. Oh, here. Yamaha Moore 7 synthesizer. That's cool. Here's another grinder. $1,500. See, crazy. This is a David Lynch design end table. From this viewpoint, I thought it was pretty cool. And then I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. He's got like these two pieces of maybe plywood with the ribbing that's And then I look closer. This must have been like one of his very, very early woodworking projects. Because when you look at when you zoom into some of the pictures, they're pretty rough. It's pretty rough. Like you can see the glue marks here. So I'm presuming this is one of his early pieces. It's cool, but just an early piece. Kind of something I thought, oh, but what if I did an interpretation of that? That looks kind of fun. Here's another one, $5,000. Or maybe this is the same one. Maybe they're just mixed in. Electric espresso maker. So it looks like he didn't use that one. That's cool. Inland Empire in Japanese. The Luna Lounge prop matchbooks. 4,500 Lost Highway. Like this kind of couch. A friend of mine just bought a couch from Ethan Allen, $4,500. So and this is like, older, like mid-century modern style. So that's probably in line with what it should cost. That's probably a pretty decent deal right there. We've got 2 sets of photo match production and studio used headphones. $1,250. You can buy those for like, $150 at the most. Vintage Singer. Oh, that's cool. Like if you're into sewing machines, I would always wanted to have a Juki, Juki. I thought those were like the bomb in like hardcore sewing machines. We're still not done. 441 lots, and we're still not done yet. And that's not bad. $1,750 for that. That's probably pretty good. Oh, that's curious. Looks like his design. Mid-century, a vintage. Oh no, maybe not. I thought maybe he designed it. Some of the furniture I noticed, it definitely fits like how I think of him. Like he's kind of auteur, quirky, interesting, like character. So it has interesting, like quirky, weird furniture. Kind of like that chair though. It's nice. Peter says sound. I don't know. Are we out of sound? Is that what you're saying? And wants a TIG welder. Does he have a TIG welder? You should get one. I like TIG. My brother has a MIG welder. The wire one. I don't know much about welding. I've tried it a little bit, a couple times, and I don't really. I'm just kind of like hacking away at it, making ugly burned beads that just look terrible. Oh, wow, look at that. There's an ICOM IC base station. He must have been into ham radio kind of work. Evidently, at $900, the estimate is up to $1,200, so should be pretty good. Some Sonos portable audio equipment. Like, that's kind of interesting, but these are pretty antiquated. Like that, and looks like cassette decks. Not really something you'd use today. I mean, you could use it today. I mean, you could use anything as long as it works. But $1,250? That seems expensive. What else do we have here? Oh, some more. That's kind of interesting. Okay, this is crazy. This is one of the crazy ones. $1,250 for these boxes. Now, what these are called? These are actually called apple boxes. And apple boxes are a staple on any set. And you have full apples, which is these. You've got half apples and quarter apples. And then there's one more version of this that's called flats. And these can be used for a variety of things. Grips will have these on their trucks. And they will use them to set things up, to just use as boxes around. There's a whole, for setups and things like that. Or they can use for what we call courtesies. And courtesies are, they'll give you a full apple and you put it on its end and you sit on it. It's actually at a great height for sitting. I have one around here somewhere that I keep around because I like them for sitting. And sometimes you get fancy and they'll put like a little pad. There's a pad you can fit on top of it so you get a little more cushion when you're tushing. So, are we done? Are we done? Oh no, we're not done yet. Good Lord. Oh, 4-7. So we still have a few more to go. Skateboard. That's kind of interesting. Telescope. Cool. Oh, another grinder. So here's one thing about his grinders, right? Like, have you noticed? He might have been in the coffee, but he wasn't very good at cleaning his grinders. Like, look at that. Why is it dirty? Why is it dirty? They're all like $5,000 for some reason. The GS5. It looks like he said, I can't tell if he said 2 or 3 of these GS5s. Stainless kitchenware for, this is cool. That old 50 style, like, or 40 style chrome. I like that. Oh, dainty teacups for $900. Holy moly. Oh, these are, well, that's interesting. Critical type of glassware. Looks like $600. All right, there it is. Lot 447, the last one. Poster group. Cool. Craig says, I think there are 3 GS3s. I mean, 3 GS3s. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty cool. All right, that's the David Lynch auction, and we made some coffee that's just not so very good. It's like, not bad. Maybe it's better if I like put it as Americano. It'd probably be all right. Craig says everything seems. I mean, I agree. A lot of it, and I get it. Like people are really into David Lynch, so they want to have a piece of his property. I gotta say though, that Capex and 4 Vax. If you could walk away today at $1,750, you got a hell of a deal, heck of a deal. Because you could sell those Vax and probably make your money back, or at least make a good significant portion of your money back. Like if you sold those Vax for $200 a piece or $300 a piece, I'm sure they get eaten out. But do you want the older Capex? I mean, there's some issues with the Capex EB versus the REB, the current one, that make the REB so much more superior with the armature. But if you need a router table, that'll be a solid choice because you get, and then that router table, if you bought that for like let's say you get it for $1,000, even for $1,500, use it for a few years, you could still, chances are you'll still be able to sell it for at least 15, maybe even more by that point. Some of those items sell for good resale value. Marcus says, I went to see the 35mm film of David Lynch pulling off a sick kickflip on the, oh, really? Oh, I want to see the 35mm. Oh, nice. Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, he looks like the skater type with the hair, right? Looks like the skater type. All right, so there's a little bit of that David Lynch auction. If you're interested, check it out. I got the link down below. If you decide to bid and you win something, let us know. I really would be interested to like know if anyone bought anything from there. All right, so I guess that's good for today. We're going to be back again tomorrow. I think tomorrow we're going to try, if everything works out, I think that's the day, that Tuesday is the day that Omniel is available to talk about the coffees that he sent to me. So he said a Tuesday and a Friday. So maybe tomorrow. Part of the reason why I had to clean this out. All right, so that's it for today. Back in tomorrow with another episode of the Coffee Q&A. Hope you have a great one out there. And see you next time. See you, Kent.